Alright, let's see if we can get into any lands this time. We're already going to have to mulligan, just looking at our opening hand. Grumgully the Generous versus Mizzet Parun, Reaper King, and Kadena Slinking Sorcerer. So let's get on with that mulligan and see if we can draw into this. This deck is cursed, clearly. Looking over at the deck list on my other screen now, 37 lands. And I know for a fact that I've put over 50 pieces of mana, including the lands, in this deck. And if we had a green source instead of the Dwarven Mine, we'd be okay there, but nope, gonna have to mulligan it yet again. And get into nothing but lands. Welcome to Magic Online. Ugh. We're gonna have to get rid of just one card there, aren't we? Well, I'm gonna keep that. Maybe we are doomed never to get a decent showing with this deck. And then we draw into another land on our first turn, so it's going to be one of those games. We are relying on very good top decks throughout the course of this game, seemingly. Well, no turn 1 plays by anyone at least, and we're going to be going in for Skyshroud Claim next turn as well, so... yeah, let's just drop a forest here and go for the 3 visits. Get down the cycle land that always comes into play tapped, and see what else our opponents can do on their turn 2. A Fire Diamond from the Mizzet player. They need as much coloured mana as they can get into. Absolutely no need for the white bordered card, of course. Someone commented on me saying that. That is me joking, by the way. I don't think some people can get sarcasm or dry humour, but I am being sarcastic and slightly humorous when I'm berating white bordered cards, although I do genuinely find them hideous. Alright, so we get some untapped lands with Skyshroud Claim. If we go like this, I think we're going to be able to go for Grumgully as well this turn. Draw into a Hardened Scales. Which should be good if we can get into some creatures and token producers. So we just go for Tiger and a basic Forest here. Yeah, and then we've got 3 mana going for our commander. At least we're going to be able to cast whatever we draw into, but... we've gone from not being able to draw into lands and ramp into drawing pretty much nothing but lands and ramp. The only fresh card we've seen so far is the Hardened Scales, which is useless on its own. The first morph creature coming from Kadena, followed by another tri-land from the Reaper King. And now Mizzet is on 2 of each colour. 6 cards in hand, I'm going for Sweltering Suns. Seems a bit early to be doing that, but fair enough. We don't really mind, we'll just replay Grumgully this turn if needs be. A Blasting Station, that's a combo piece for us. We can keep from tapping the Ancient Tomb here, can't we? So let's drop a Mountain, and we'll get the Hardened Scales into play, followed by our commander. The good thing about having a low-costed commander is you don't mind if it gets wiped out once or twice. The Blasting Station is actually a sack outlet for our Persist creatures. I only have 3 Persist creatures in the deck and 3 sack outlets. So we're not looking to go for a Persist win. We're actually looking to go wide with tokens and big creatures and stuff like that. Make use of the plus counters with Hardened Scales and Doubling Season. But if we need to go for a combo win because we're at a stalemate or in a tricky situation, then we can do that as well. And Kadena comes down with a free morph creature. Seems as though the Sweltering Suns would have been better played after Kadena comes down. Now a Shard of Convergence. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp and a mountain and put them into your hand. They're going to have to discard a few things here. Yeah, they go up to 10 cards, 4 of which are lands, and they're going to have to discard at the end of the turn. Okay, so they get rid of a couple of islands and a mountain. Let's just see if any of those are what they looked for. Yeah, so they discarded the mountain they searched for, and then they discarded one of the islands that they searched for as well. They do have a plains in hand from that though. Then a Reliquary Tower from Mizzet. A handy land for them, but they're going to have to manage to get up to their colours before they can cast their commander, and they're 2 mana away currently. And we continue to just get into the ramp that we don't need. Well, I'm not going to cast Blasting Station when we've got nothing to do with it. Hopefully we can drop a Persist creature and a Blasting Station on the same turn if we want to go for a win like that. But I'm assuming Mizzet is holding up counters. We'll get out the Cinderglade, drop the Wooded Foothills, and let's swing in at the Mizzet player. If they've got an answer to get rid of our Grumgully, we can just recast it again. I'd rather they use their lightning bolts and things like that now, so that they don't do it whilst their commander is in play, but they decide to just take the damage. Another free morph spell from Kadena. And then Kadena decided to go in at Reaper King, spreading the damage around. Reaper King takes it, and then the Sultai player goes in for a Dimir Signet. Reaper King decides to sit back and do nothing. So we'll see if we get any closer to Mizzet Parun this turn. Doesn't seem like it. I'm going to leave the Wooded Foothills in play just in case we want to shuffle with a Sylvan Library or something. Yeah, this is a cursed deck, isn't it? Well, we'll just drop another land and swing back in at Mizzet Parun. And actually, on second thoughts, I might regret shuffling up the library if we draw into a Sylvan Library, but I'm just going to take 2 lands out of the deck. It's 2 less lands that we'll draw into, and apparently that's going to matter this game. We'll go for a Dwarven Mine, and that will get us into a 3/3 Dwarf, as long as our Grumgully stays in play. Could have done that as a combat trick, but I'm half expecting the Mizzet player to interfere with our combats and Grumgully shenanigans anyway. Then we'll just go for a forest, and that is 2 less lands that we can draw into at random. And the 3rd morph creature of the game. Oh, actually, that's the 4th, isn't it? The other one died, and yeah, I never checked. It was an Aenoch Survivalist that got wiped out by Mizzet's board wipe previously. I'm guessing they are wishing that they'd waited a turn or 2 on that now. Alright, just committing 1 morph creature towards the Mizzet player. Blockers are declared. And that is not flipped over into anything, so Mizzet just taking 2 points of damage there. Rampant growth from the Reaper King. I'm pretty sure all they've done this game is go for ramp cards and mana fixing, stuff like that. Yeah, looking at their graveyard, that's what they're doing here. And Mizzet is going to respond to that somehow. That is an Insidious Will. Copy a target instant or sorcery and you can choose new targets, so they are going to get themselves into 1 more piece of coloured mana. Copying a Rampant Growth is pretty desperate. I'm sure they wish that was a Cultivate. And the Reaper King just decides to leave it there. They've got 6 cards in hand, and they haven't really done anything other than ramp the entire game, or mana fix. Now there is enough mana on this side of the field to go for Mizzet, and they are going for a Blasphemous Act. So we'll see what these morph creatures are, or at least one of them if there's a counter spell on this side of the table. No, the morph creatures were not flipped over at all there. There was a Mischievous Canar. I'm assuming that's how you say that. When it's turn faced up, copy an instant or sorcery. That wouldn't have done anything. Echo Tracer. When it's turn face up, return a target creature to its owner's hand. They could have made use of that, surely. They might want to hold up all this mana for something else, though. And then the other one was Gift of Doom. Enchant a creature. Yeah, so there's no point in doing that. And then we've had our Hardened Scales blown up by a Nature's Claim. And just draw into another land. That is... if there's one thing I don't like, it's having my time wasted. And I feel as though I'm having my time wasted doing this. Get down Grumgully again, and yet again I'm going to go for a land with the fetch so that it is yet one more land that we can't draw into. Okay, and now going for a crib swap onto Grumgully the Generous. Our opponent does know that there's a Mizzet at the table, doesn't he? Alright, but our opponents are clearly terrified of Grumgully coming down, even though we've only got 2 cards in hand. And then deciding to take out our commander and then scoop. Yeah, that's, well, I won't say what that is. So we'll go for a mountain there and pass the turn over to our 2 blue friends. Now we see Kadena come back down with 2 blue mana held up. Then yet another morph creature. They will draw a card here, assuming that Kadena stays in play, and it does. Then just passing the turn, and surely we'll see Mizzet come down now. Nope, doesn't look like it. That is yet another board wipe. Okay. Alright, well, finally getting into a bit of something. Whether we'll be able to land it is anyone's guess. Let's see how much Grumgully is now. That is 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. We are 1 mana short of getting down Garrick's Pack Leader and Grumgully. I'm actually going to go for the commander here. And then let's see if our opponents have any counter magic, because if they know anything about... No, that is an F6 through our turn, so it might be that Kadena does not have any counter magic, and neither does the Mizzet Parun. They might have just F6'd after the Grumgully came down. But if you know anything about Grumgully, you know that sack outlets, like Blasting Station, ought to not hit the field. Because for all our opponents know, we are definitely going for a persist creature win. Alright, and now a Thieving Amalgam. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you can manifest the top card of that player's library. When a creature you control but don't own dies, its owner loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Let's just untap the already untapped Blasting Station. So probably going to manifest a creature from the Mizzet Parun here. It's not likely that they will hit a creature off of Mizzet Parun, but it's a 2/2 blocker for them at the very least. A wipe away with split second, return a permanent to its owner's hand. Well, that trigger's still on the stack, so I don't think that does what they want it to do. But there's nothing anyone can do about it with split second, so it does go back. And then the Kadena player can get a 2/2 creature. Talisman of Creativity for the Mizzet Parun, so they've got 2 blue held up here. It's likely that they want to get down their commander with counter magic backup. Let's see if they want to counter a Garrick's Pack Leader. Preferably we would want... not a land, is what I was going to say. No, preferably we would want a big creature, or a creature with power 3 or greater to draw into here, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Yeah, this just gives a plus counter to our commander, so let's go for the Garrick's Pack Leader. This will come in as a 5/5, and then it's just fingers crossed that we can actually draw into a creature this game. Let's carry on going in at the Mizzet player. The Thieving Amalgam comes back down, still with 2 blue mana held up for Kadena. And now the Manifest creature going in at Mizzet, so it's turned into a 2 versus 1 by the looks of it. And at this late stage in the game, with all this mana, I think it needs to turn into a means of getting rid of Mizzet, because he's going to be able to get back into the game very quickly. Although this Thieving Amalgam isn't going to do nothing for Kadena. And that looks like our opponent's commander, yes. The Mizzet Parun comes down. They've got blue mana held up still, 4 cards in hand. But it's not double blue noticeably. Now, fingers crossed we get into a creature of some kind. A chain of creatures off the top would be nice. First, our opponent will exile the top card of our library. We've no idea what that is. It is a Loyal Apprentice. That's actually a pretty good one. So we've got a blocker for Mizzet now. Unfortunately, don't have our Hardened Scales anymore. If we had hardened scales, our Thopters would actually come down as 3/3s and trigger the Garruk's Pack Leader. So it was actually good for our opponents to get rid of that hardened scales. But we'll get 2/2 Thopters every combat step. Or every one of our combat steps at least. Just going to hold these creatures back as blockers and pass the turn through again. This is what happens when you keep an opening hand with a bunch of lands in it. You just become reliant on top deck mode, and we have not had that pay off for us today, unfortunately. But you saw the cards that I had to mulligan away. I think it was a couple of hands with one land in them apiece. And you've also seen how much ramp is in the deck as well, so yet again, we've been incredibly unlucky with Grumgully. Only the second game I've played with this commander, and it hasn't gone well either times. Looks like Kadena is tapping out here. Just getting down the commander again with 2 mana floating, curiously. Then a free morph creature. Then Kadena decided not to swing in. They could have swung in with the Thieving Amalgam at the Mizzet player, but decided against that. A face-down creature enters for Kadena from the top of Mizzet's library, and that triggers Kadena for card draw. And Mizzet draws a card at the beginning of the turn, so that pings the Thopter Apprentice, or whatever this is called, Loyal Apprentice. So that's the last of our Thopter production. Then a Murmuring Mystic for more token production, and now they've got mana held up for all kinds of things, I'm sure. Followed by a Gitaxian Probe, obviously not going to target us with that because we've got an empty hand. And that will draw Mizzet a card, and it will trigger the Murmuring Mystic. And they'll get to ping something else here. Deciding to target one of the manifest creatures. So they're going to be casting something else here, I think. Oh, they'll actually draw a card from Gitaxian Probe, won't they? So that itself will trigger Mizzet. And again, deciding to target that. Got 5 cards left in hand now. So something's actually beginning to happen in the game. Oh, they got rid of the Mizzet's Keranos. That was the manifested creature. So this thing will drain Mizzet Parun. But first off, they're going for a Pongify onto that, which again will trigger the Murmuring Mystic and the Mizzet Parun. The 1 damage is going onto this manifested creature now. Pongify resolves, giving our opponent a 3/3 ape. And then going for a Lightning Greaves, no doubt, for their commander. So not going for another instant or sorcery this turn. No, actually going to put it on the Murmuring Mystic. Maybe they're looking to swing in with this. Oh no, it doesn't have flying, so probably not. I'd be very surprised if they value this over their commander. Alright, well they are just keeping the Lightning Greaves on their Murmuring Mystic. Let's see if I'm about to scoop or not. Jeez. Unreal. Oh. Alright, well, we'll just play it out. So what are we on? Turn 11. So it's 1, 2, 3 bits of ramp, a Hardened Scales, a Loyal Apprentice, and a Garruk's Pack Leader. Oh, maybe we drew Blasting Station as well. I can't remember what was in our opening hand, but this is just utterly, utterly painful to play through. I'm not going to bother cracking the Wasteland yet because I don't think the Reliquary Tower is doing a whole lot of good for our opponent until they get above 7 cards. Yet another Morph creature for Kadena. Then it looks as though Kadena is just passing the turn with 6 cards in hand and a bunch of mana as well. And the first card draw of the turn for Mizzet Parun comes down. They're pointing a damage at the Kadena. Then going for Labman. I don't see that they are anywhere near drawing their entire library. Followed by Reforge the Soul. Well, that changes things, doesn't it? That's exactly what we needed, and not necessarily what the Mizzet Parun player should have done, but perhaps they want to get this game moving as well. And with that wheel, there's going to be a bunch of card draw from Mizzet and a bunch of damage flying around, but there is a persist creature for us. Can we land said persist creature, and has Kadena drawn into any counter magic. Let's see if they discarded any. There's Histrodon, a Thelonite Hermit, a Feto Runecaster, 1,000 Winds, and some lands. That's it. Now they might have counter magic in one of these two morph creatures. Alright, that is on the ape. Yes. Then 2 damage on the manifest creature, 2 damage on that manifest creature, and 1 more damage onto the Kadena. So they're not going to kill off this ape. That's only 2 damage as I count it. Followed by a Soul Ring from Mizzet. So I'm going to assume that they don't have any free counter magic. They discarded an Echo of Eons. Oh, so that's another wheel for them. And there's a Turn Aside as well. And Saheeli, Sublime Artificers in the bin. And then a Core Sky Diamond off of the Sol Ring. They didn't get rid of the morph creatures, annoyingly, so there might be more counter spells there. We'll have to see if we can bait out some counter magic here, I think. Kadena might have removal for Grumgully or the Blasting Station as well. Let's start things off with a land. We'll go for Mana Crypt as well. And Kadena's not F6 through our turn, so it may well be that they've got something to do on our turn. Let's just go for the Mana Reflection. That would be really good to land, but it's also something that our opponent's going to want to counter, I imagine. They do not counter it. We've got another sack outlet in Spawning Pit. Yeah, I think it is worth tapping this down for 4 mana, going for the Spawning Pit. Then we'll go for Soul of the Harvest as well. And this will draw us a card, thanks to Garrick's Pack Leader. And we get into Bane of Progress. We don't want to go for that, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12... 14, 16 mana. I'm really trying to work around counter magic here, so let's go for Reclamation Sage. I don't know if Mizzet Parun is carrying any free counter spells, but Reclamation Sage might bait one out. We'll go after their Lightning Greaves here. And that enters with a plus counter thanks to Grumgully, so it not only triggers Soul of the Harvest, but it triggers our Garrick's Pack Leader that needs to see 3 power or more enter. So let's go after the Lightning Greaves. Say yes to that, so I'm not really seeing any counter magic thus far. There's a Tendershoot Dryad. I would like to get that going as well. So we've got 2, 4 and 5, and I think we've still got enough for the Thunderblust. Let's say always yes and yield to the Soul of the Harvest as well. Pyogenic Ooze is another one I'd like to play with, but I think we just have to go for the win while we've got the chance here. So we'll go Tendershoot Dryad. All of those Saprolings will enter as 4/4s as long as the Tendershoot Dryad is in play. Getting a lot of card draw here from our creatures. Getting to Steelbane Hydra as well. Yeah, I think we just go for the win here now. And we've gotten into card draw at least, if one of our opponent disrupts us. And we'll actually draw cards every time these things come down now. Let's go for the Elemental Bond as well before we start going off with Persist. We're actually going to draw 3 cards every time we do this, as well as going infinite. So we point a damage at Mizzet and sacrifice the Persist creature. Then it comes back with Persist. And Persist brings the creature back with a minus counter on it, but because of Grumgully being in play, it also gives it a +1/+1 counter, so those two cancel each other out. And all it means is that we go infinite. Actually, we're going to have to sacrifice. Luckily, we've got sack outlets, but we're actually going to have to sacrifice our card draw engine here. But let's just draw a few more cards first. Look at all that we drew without any extra lands. This is, I've said it 1,000 times already, but this is a cursed deck. We sacrifice the persist creature, do all that again. Put these on the stack. And we can just do this forever. Once we've got a few lands in hand, I'm actually going to have to sacrifice the creatures that are drawing us cards to minimise the amount of damage being done here, because we're actually going to draw a card every time one comes in with Elemental Bond as well, which there's currently nothing we can do about. Yeah, so let's actually go for that now. Sack Soul of the Harvest. Sack the Garruk's Pack Leader. Alright, and now I think we actually still lose because we want to deal... Yeah, shouldn't have cast that Elemental Bond apparently. Only second time playing this deck, so I'm still learning it. But we actually want to deal 19 plus 43 points of damage. I mean, that's what we're relying on, someone scooping like that after we've shown them the infinite. But we actually couldn't have taken down both of our opponents because we'll deck ourselves beforehand. But we've got 49 cards left in the library and 42 damage to deal to our opponents, so we can actually win now, thanks to Mizzet scooping. So that wheel really helped us out there. Alright, our opponent sat through that for quite a few cycles of the combo, but they've finally worked out, I think, that it is infinite and that they don't have anything for it. So very quickly, all we were doing there is sacrificing the Thunderblast with Persist to the Blasting Station, and it deals 1 damage to any target, and then when a creature enters, this untaps and we can do it again. Thanks to this coming back in with a minus counter and a plus counter, thanks to Grumgully and Persist, it comes in with actually no counters, which means it can come in with Persist again, and we can do it an infinite number of times. We can also do the same combo with, what is it called, the Goblin Bombardment, and then one of the other Persist creatures is Woodfall Primus. We can use this without one of the damage dealing sack outlets. We can actually use it with the third one in Spawning Pit and wipe out all of our opponent's non-creature permanents. So that includes lands. We can wipe out all of our opponent's lands basically. So if we don't have Blasting Station, but we do have our Grumgully and a Woodfall Primus, then we can use this sack outlet to go for all of our opponent's lands if we want to win like that. We can also make use of the sack outlets with the Skull Clamp. It's not likely that we're going to be getting 1/1 creatures into play because we want to get a lot of +1/+1 counters on all of our creatures, so Skull Clamp is still of use to us as long as we can get into sack outlets like this. Really helped out by the Mizzet Parun player there who cast that wheel, but that did not go at all well for us. You saw the hands that I had to mulligan at the beginning of the game, and then we just drew nothing but mana pretty much. So I think I do want to get yet another Grumgully game underway and see if we can actually have it work out the way that it's supposed to work out this time. I mean, you can see all the different variants of cards I have here, and you can look at the deck list as well if you are at all dubious of how I've built the deck. We've just been really unlucky twice in a row. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this game nonetheless. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.